The threat of war with Venezuela, Ukraine on the precipice, a possible counter-revolution in Iran, China eyeing an invasion of Taiwan, and a U.S. president with a radical new understanding of America's role in the world. 2026 could be a dangerous year. We'll talk about why next.
This is Washington Week with The Atlantic. Corporate funding provided by...
In 1995, two friends set out to make wireless coverage accessible to all. With no long-term contracts, nationwide coverage, and 100% U.S.-based customer support. Consumer Cellular. Freedom calls.
Certified financial planner professionals are proud to support Washington Week with The Atlantic. CFP professionals are committed to acting in their clients' best interest. More information at letsmakeaplan.org.
Additional funding is provided by Koo and Patricia Ewan for the Ewan Foundation, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities. Sandra and Carl DeLay Magnuson, Rose Herschel and Andy Shreves, Robert and Susan Rosenbaum, Charles Hamawi through the Charles Hamawi Fund, Steve and Marilyn Kerman, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you. Once again, from the David M. Rubenstein studio at WETA in Washington, Editor-in-Chief of The Atlantic and Moderator, Jeffrey Goldberg.
Good evening and welcome to Washington Week. President Trump recently released his new national security strategy. It's a remarkable document, one that upends many of the principles that have guided U.S. policymaking since the end of World War II. Tonight, I'll discuss the new strategy and how it may play out in conflict zones around the world with Tom Friedman of the New York Times. Tom, Happy New Year. Thank you for being with us. 2026, big year. Yes. Big year, maybe even bigger than 2025. There's a lot to talk about. Let's talk about this national security strategy, which was just released last month in December. Many people were struck by it. You were struck. I was struck by the fact that it barely discusses our traditional adversaries, China and Russia, and this has been really flummoxing to a lot of people. Why does it barely touch on the subject of Russia and China and their role in American foreign policy? And talk about what it does talk about.
Well, Jeff, I think that document really manifests what a radically different view this administration holds about the world. Radical not just from Democrats, but from previous Republican administrations. You and I grew up in a world of both Republican and Democratic leaders who saw the role of the president to be the defender and expander of a world of free markets and free people and the rule of law. Right. And in such a world, Europe, particularly the European Union, was an important pillar and ally. This group is different. They see themselves in a global kind of civilizational war, defending the Judeo-Christian world, and a world of independent nations not working together in any collaborative way, with America being the biggest and therefore having the biggest influence. Right. That's very different from the world that you and I grew up in, and that has really been the mission of America up to now. Right.
Let me read you something that you wrote just a few days ago. Trump, is not interested in refighting the Cold War to defend and expand the frontiers of democracy. He is, in my view, interested in fighting the civilizational war over what is the American home and what is the European home, with an emphasis on race and Christian Judeo-faith, and who is an ally in that war and who is not. Talk about this concept of defense of home.
Well, you know, if you ask me, Jeff, what's the biggest question you get traveling around the world today? It's a question that Itamar Ben-Gvir, the far-right nationalist leader in Israel, had on his bus ads during the Israeli last election. And it was just a question that said, who's the landlord here? Whose country is this anyway? Because we live in this age of massive migration.
Heritage Americans.
Yes, exactly.
In
our country, that would be it. Right. We live in this age of massive migration, happened very, very fast. And basically, a lot of Americans went to the grocery store sometime in the last 20 years, and the woman at the cash register wasn't wearing a baseball hat. Then they went into the men's room, and there was a woman there. Then they went to the office, and their boss rolled up a robot, and it seemed to be studying their job. People's sense of home of cultural norms and of work all got disrupted at the same time. So people's sense of home, people's sense of rootedness. My friend Andy Karsner has the best definition of home and community. It's a place where people feel connected, protected, and respected. And right now, there are a lot of people in America and around the world basically asking, whose country is this anyway, and when can I feel at home?
So what is the Trump, within the framework of this national security strategy, what is the particular Trump criticism of our traditional allies in Europe? That they're not protecting their own values, which are our values?
Well, he sees them basically as having unrestrained immigration.
Right.
And particularly in Europe's case, it's from the Muslim world, not from the Hispanic world as we have in the United States. Very different from the Judeo-Christian tradition. And being open to a lot of these radical, transgender, from Trump's point of view, norms, LGBT. And that explains why Trump sees Putin as an ally. He's a white Christian nationalist who hates the LGBT movement and all of the progressive causes. They see him not in some struggle of East-West, but as an ally in the civilizational war.
Let me just ask you. I mean, this hostility to Europe, France, Germany, Britain in particular, three pillars of our alliance system. It is true that Europe has an immigration assimilation problem, and it is true that it has a radical Islamist problem. Well, here's what, just watch this for a second, because here's what J.D. Vance had to say. It made it very, very clear at the Munich Security Conference. Let's watch this.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
Look, to give him some credit, to give some credit to the intellectual framework of this, European nations have a different understanding of free speech.
Yes.
Not First Amendment based like we have. They do have this, they're more secularized than our society is, although we're moving into an unchurched, in an unchurched direction. Are they onto something at all, or is it just xenophobia masquerading as an intellectual exercise?
I think they're onto something in this sense, Jeff. And I felt this in America too. On the question of immigration, I'm for a really high wall with a very big gate, okay? Which is that countries have got to control their borders. And we know from history, when countries get flooded by immigrants, in a very rapid way, in a very short period of time, it upsets people's sense of home. And Europe, like America, to some degree, lost control of their borders.
Did Joe Biden not take that seriously?
Not enough.
Yeah.
Not enough. Under pressure from the left wing of the party, not enough. And again, I'm super pro-immigration, but it's got to be done in a way where the people can become Americans and be really anchored in our society and our values. And I think, so he's not raising an illegitimate point. What I have a problem with them on Europe, Americans will do anything, Jeff, for the European Union except read about it. But to my mind, the European Union is one of the greatest inventions of modern man. Can we please remember the history of Europe, like from time immemorial, was of wars, family wars, religious wars, sectarian wars. The last three
Italy
of
was
which,
30 countries.
Exactly, that's right. The last three of which, the United States, World War I, World War II, and the Cold War, we had to send our brothers and sisters over to help quell. Out of that history, they've created the biggest center of free markets, free people, and the rule of law. Yes, I think they would tell you, and Brexit was proof of it, some of the immigration got out of control. But let's remember, they are our wingman in the world. We are the blessed generation that lives in a world of two United States, not just one, a United States of Europe and a United States of America. So his critique is not illegitimate. It's not without point. But when it's presented just this way, as if you guys are off on some crazy civilizational jag and we have no interest in you anymore, not appreciating how stable another United States makes our world, that's nuts. Trump sees the European Union, frankly, as like a shopping mall that isn't paying enough rent. The French baguette shop is not paying enough rent. Rather than seeing this whole entity as another giant center of free markets and free
I have
people.
to say, though, that even President Obama agreed. He voiced it in a more civilized,
yes.
moderated fashion, but that Europe wasn't paying its fair share of its defense.
Yes.
To be fair, we kind of walked into a couple of situations here. On the other hand, for me, the EU corollary, what's a great strategic alliance, NATO,
right.
has kept the peace since World War II, and it seems as if, well, it doesn't seem as if, we've already seen President Trump threaten militarily two NATO allies, Canada and Denmark. So talk about the defense framework here and what that means for our understanding of whether we're on Ukraine's side or not.
Well, you know, let's sort of really zoom out for a second. If we go back to 2022, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we go to the Hamas-Israel war, what basically was going on was Ukraine was trying to join the West, and Israel was trying to join the East. That is, Ukraine was trying to join the European Union. If Ukraine, with its, I think, 60 million some people, really advanced economy, high tech, if Ukraine joins the European Union, we are actually 95% to a Europe whole and free. It would be the greatest expansion of freedom and free markets in Europe since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Had Israel been able to normalize with Saudi Arabia, it would have been the greatest expansion of the world of inclusion in the Middle East since Camp David.
Right.
Russia stopped the first and Iran stopped the second. All right? And that's why that war is really important. And what Russia did is bad, and what Hamas did is bad. Doesn't mean everything Israel did on the other way is good. We could go into all of that, or Ukraine, but something really big is at stake here. You know, we take for granted, Jeff, the world. You and I were born in, I was born in 53. You were born in when?
2004.
That's right. I
Yep.
forgot. I knew.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
We have
22.
grown up in the most peaceful, prosperous era of world history, like in a really, really long time. You know,
Well, this is the thing. The
You know what I mean?
success of NATO
Right.
creates an assumption that the world is always like this for no particular
Exactly. The world is the way the world is because America was the way America was. You take that America out of the world. You take an America that no longer believes in the European Union, no longer believes in NATO, no longer believes in being the defender of free markets and free people. And I tell you, our kids will grow up in a very different world, and you will miss this one when it's gone.
So here's a 2026 question. Are we on an inexorable slide toward the dissolution of NATO? The reason I ask this is because the German chancellor himself just said recently, our partnership with the United States of America, which has long been the reliable guarantor of our security, is changing. For us Europeans, this means that we must defend and assert our interests even more strongly on our own. The Europeans, as you know, because you talk to the leaders, they are no longer looking to Washington as a source of stable protection. Are we heading in one direction, or is this something that 3-4 years from now we'll be sitting around this table saying, what was that about? That was strange. Remember when we wanted to date some other people for a few months?
If Trump keeps going where he's going to threaten this. I do believe the weight and the value and importance of these alliances will even, push him back. But if we have Trump and then Vance, given his isolationist tendencies, we will live in a less prosperous and a less stable and a much more China-dominated world.
Let's go to that. Why is China not a major player in the national security strategy of the United States anymore?
Well, again, it should be.
But as Trump sees it,
right? And the people who write these documents, I don't know where they're coming from, but China today is a peer military and economic rival of the United States, but different from Russia at least. China is in the game. That is, China has a fundamental economic interest in maintaining the global trading system. Russia, all they do is export oil. Like, have you bought a Russian watch lately, or a Russian computer, or a Russian AI system? Right. That's all they've got, and that's why Putin is such a disruptor. Basically, he went from a distributor of wealth early on in his term to a distributor of dignity. Okay, and distributors of dignity are people who start wars, over national,
Right.
causes or whatever. So, managing the U.S.-China relationship, I think, is the central foreign policy.
It's interesting. You're, in a way, making an argument that the Trump national security team makes, which is that Russia and Ukraine, that's a sideshow compared to the big issue, you have Elbridge Colby and other people in the Pentagon who are China, 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 and they're saying, we're not going to get bogged down in Ukraine on behalf of Ukraine in the same way that we shouldn't have gotten bogged down in the Middle East because China is going to eat our lunch. I mean, it does sound like you're in alignment with a Trump vision.
Am I allowed to swear on this show?
It's
okay.
PBS.
Okay, so sorry. Because I would say that is something stupid, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why is it? We are a country of 340 million.
Mm-hmm.
China's a country of 1.3 billion people. And whatever you think about China, Jeff, you can love them or hate them, these are serious people. When 1.3 billion serious people are focused on economic growth and military development, the idea that we alone can take them on is utter nonsense.
Oh, so you're saying
we
need to be
NATO,
with Europe, so Europe is with us.
Exactly. That's the only way we can deal with them on trade. How would any sane person deal with China on trade? We'd get all our allies together. We might even strike a treaty, call it TPP, okay? Or the Trans-European, American Trade Agreement. We'd all agree on a set of values and rules, and then we'd sit down with China with real weight as equals. How would a moron do it? He'd actually go to war with all our allies at the same time, and then threaten China, and then discover, oh, you have rare earths that we need that run our entire economy? Oh my God, nobody told me. I missed that tweet. So the Chinese love this. Why does China and Russia always vote Trump? Because they know he can never put together an alliance that can truly counterbalance.
No, it is interesting that most of the neighbors, most of the countries that touch China, North Korea being the exception, probably the sole exception, would rather be allied with the United States than with China. So then this goes to the key question, why is there contempt in the Trump administration for the notion of alliances among democracies?
Well, it starts with the fact that the president thinks if you have a trade surplus with me, you are stealing from me, okay? And since that is nothing to do with economics, it's like a superstition. It's like believing you shouldn't have a black cat, cross your path, all right? When you start there, then you can't look at someone as a potential ally. And what the president believes on tariffs is simply wrong. There is no economist in the Milky Way galaxy who believes what his spokeswoman said, that tariffs are a tax cut, okay? There's no one who believes his view on balance of trade. It's all crazy, all right? And that's why, if you look at all the stories in the last month, because I'm doing a column on this, the number of small business people who are just up in arms, they completely can't plan, they can't import, whatever. And so if everything is a transaction, if you know the price of everything and the value of nothing, which is Donald Trump, okay, then you don't appreciate how these countries can be allies with it. Jeff, did countries take advantages of after World War II, when we stood astride the world? Yeah, there's no question. But we were the world's biggest economy. And we had a growing economy because we were the biggest. We benefited from all the stability.
We were half the world's economy at 45.
And could we have done more sharing the pie inside, trade insurance for people who got disrupted by trade? Absolutely, we should have. But the idea that you overturn this whole system, for what?
Right. One of the interesting things about this Trump strategy document are the words Trump strategy, right? Because this is not a person. We have this experience with consistent thoughts and application of thoughts. And it's very interesting that your paper just ran a terrific piece by Adam Entus on the buildup or the last year of the Trump management of the Ukraine file. And he wrote this, I just think it's a very smart observation. Mr. Trump had scant ideological commitment. His pronouncement and determinations were often shaped by the last person he spoke to, by how much respect he felt the Ukrainian and Russian leaders had shown him, and by what caught his eye on Fox News. So this is there's an interesting dissonance here. On the one hand, Donald Trump is not somebody with fixed ideology, right? On the other hand, he's issuing, or his administration is issuing, a national strategy document that's very fixed in its view. So do you think that the strategy document, you just wrote a column about it, actually doesn't matter that much? Because what matters is what Trump thinks on any given Tuesday?
I'm going to confess something on your show, Jeff. Mm-hmm. I have no sources in this administration because having sources in this administration other than the president would be dangerous. Because whatever they tell you, if you then write a column or a news story about it, Trump can go absolutely 180 degrees the opposite the next day on Twitter or on Truth Social. So it's all him. There's no process. There's no deputies committee. Look how they've changed tariffs. One day farmers, one day not, up, down. It's all seat of the pants with everyone running around the
Are you saying it's not 4D chess?
Right. No, actually, it's Russian roulette with a loaded pistol. Okay, that's
every chamber is
exactly
loaded.
Right. That's what it is. Okay,
Right.
And so there's no consistency at all. You know, and
not to be devil's advocate about everything, but isn't the lack of consistency, doesn't that keep countries like Iran and North Korea off balance at least? We don't know what he's going to do. And, you know, you can't think of many Democrats who scare authoritarian adversaries like Iran or North Korea. Doesn't this at least?
Absolutely. And if you harness that, if you focus it, as the president did in bringing about the ceasefire in Gaza, for which I gave him effusive praise, because I think only he could have done it.
Right.
Because he was the only one who was ready to bring real leverage on Israel and real leverage on Hamas. When he's focused like that, he can do it. But compare that to Ukraine. He brings super leverage on Ukraine, but nothing on Putin. And one of the great mysteries here, I've never bought into the Russia, owns Trump, that Putin owns Trump. I've never bought into any of those things. But when you don't buy into any of those things, Jeff, you're just left with one of two things. One is he's a complete dupe for Putin. And the other, which is worse, is that he actually likes Putin more in his values than he does Ukraine and Zelensky.
Do you think he has core values?
I think he's a purely transactional person on most issues, but not on this one. It's very strange. He was ready to bring leverage on Netanyahu, okay, and on Hamas, but he's never been ready to bring leverage on Putin. Would somebody please explain why?
Right. In the few minutes we have left, we'll talk about two issues that are bubbling up right now and continue to bubble up as we move forward into 2026, Venezuela and Iran. Please explain Venezuela in this context. You have 30 seconds.
Well, yeah, exactly. Look,
please explain what's going on.
In a way, they're very similar countries, oil producers, failed states, basically, government, but big populations and giant keystones in their region. Now, Venezuela has an illegitimate leader who stole an election, you know what I mean? And so I'm not against putting pressure on him. But again, you want to do it with allies, okay? And you want to have a plan for the morning after. Let's say Maduro leaves or is toppled or Venezuela really falls into civil war. Talk about an immigration problem. When some countries implode, other countries explode. Venezuela explodes, okay? Ask its neighbors how many millions of refugees they're now dealing with.
Do you think Trump would actually go to war with Venezuela in 2026?
I would rule out nothing, Jeff. I would rule out nothing. And again, I have no sources, so I couldn't tell you.
Right. On the Iran question, this was pretty remarkable. Iran right now is undergoing more convulsions. The people, obviously, of Iran do not like their government. We've seen that again and again. The government shows no hesitation to actually shoot down peaceful demonstrators in the street. This is what Trump just wrote. He on Truth Social. If Iran shots, that's the way he spelled it, shots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. That is the clearest. I've never seen a president threaten Iran that directly. Is there something behind that? Or, again, we don't know.
Beats me.
What are the consequences of saying something like that?
Well, there are two kind of consequences. One is obviously Iranians would see it and more people would go out in the streets and then say, please come America, where are you? So Trump will look foolish. The other, you have to be very careful. This is the kind of thing the Iranian regime would do to delegitimize the protesters. You're acting for Trump. You're acting for the foreigner, for the America. That actually matters inside Iran.
Right.
So these are very delicate situations. Obama got criticized for not doing enough. Trump can get himself in trouble for offering to do too much. At the end of the day, neither will matter, Jeff. What will matter is what the Iranian people do on the streets and how the regime responds.
In the few seconds we have left, based on your knowledge of Iran, is this situation different than previous situations of unrest in the streets?
It feels different because the regime is weaker after the 12-day war it lost to Israel. And you have a combination of things now. You've got the money, the economy that is collapsing, but Mother Nature just showed up. And Iran is now one of the most water-starved countries in the world, and Mother Nature is going to kill them all long before they kill each other.
Well, on that happy note, we'll do this again, and we'll try to end on a hopeful.
Unless she doesn't.
Unless she doesn't. To be sure, only time will tell.
Exactly.
We're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank Tom for joining me, and thank you at home for watching us. I'm Jeffrey Goldberg. Good night from Washington.
Corporate funding for Washington Week with The Atlantic is provided by Consumer Cellular.
Certified financial planner professionals are proud to support Washington Week with The Atlantic. CFP professionals are committed to acting in their clients' best interest. More information at letsmakeaplan.org.
Additional funding is provided by Ku and Patricia Ewan for the Ewan Foundation, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities. Sandra and Carl DeLay Magnuson, Rose Herschel and Andy Shreves, Robert and Susan Rosenbaum, Charles Hamawi through the Charles Hamawi Fund, Steve and Marilyn Kerman, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.